All right, we are now talking about water quality and water quantity. So, water quality, we usually talk about parts per million or parts per billion, which is pretty much like a percent, but instead of it being like 1 in 100, it is 1 in 1 million or 1 in 1 billion. And total dissolved solids, just meaning how much of multiple things you're talking about. So you can take how much sodium and how much calcium is in there, put that together in total dissolved solids. But it wouldn't just be the sodium and uh, calcium, it would be everything in there. Hard water contains a lot of calcium and magnesium, and that's anything greater than 80 to 100. The term hard water actually comes from how hard it was for people to get like soap bubbles to pop up in the water. And so they called it hard because it was hard to get it to be like soapy. Let's see, we have water use and water supply. So in the US, generally, the eastern US has a lot of rain and the western US is pretty dry. So the western US uses a lot more groundwater. But they're not really getting the rain to recharge the groundwater. So it's not really a renewable source for them. Globally, there's a very high demand, and not many places left to find more water. So here's just a picture of drought conditions showing it drier on the west and the north. I forget what year this represents. I'm sure this is a specific year and water withdrawals by state, showing California and Texas withdrawing the most to groundwater. And then, as you would expect, areas where it rains a lot, not really so much groundwater withdrawal. Um, Here's withdrawals by industry. So this shows the highest is for power. However, after it's run through the generator, I suppose. Um, the water's put back into the ground, so it's not really taken out of the system when it's used for power. Public supply and livestock really isn't that much, but irrigation for the food that feeds all of the people is definitely what most of the groundwater withdrawal is going to. Here's just showing areas. With freshwater stress, pretty much meaning that they're depending more on groundwater than what they are getting from rainfall. And as you would expect, it is areas that are kind of naturally dry. Um, and then same thing here, groundwater and soil drought conditions. Again, this is a snapshot in time, 2022, showing this is where the groundwater was depleted compared to, I forget what the book used, but compared to a year used as a standard. And then here is soil conditions showing wet and dry soil compared to that year or that average. Here are some case studies in water consumption. I'm not really going to go through these, but you can see there are areas where the groundwater is getting lower as well as lakes. So here we have the High Plains Aquifer System, Lake Chad, the Colorado River, and the Aral Sea. If you want to read the details, you can obviously find that in your textbook. And then a little note on extending water supply. People have talked about glaciers. How you prevent the glacier from melting and mixing with the salt water of the ocean is quite problematic. So easier is desalination methods. This is being done. Cruise ships use this entirely. Um, Coastal areas as well. And these images just kind of give you the way that's done. Common sense is boiling the water and collecting the water vapor, which is then pure. And although that's not really, I don't think the more common way it's done. I think the osmosis is more common, which is really just filtering it through a very fine membrane and then getting the purified water on the other side. Um, let's see, conservation. So obviously we need to conserve water to make it last. Conservation alone will not resolve the imbalance between demand and supply, though. So we need more fresh water. There has been thought of moving water from one area to another area, which, we can build pipes but that gets expensive. And like I've mentioned before, it's kind of a shame we can't take some of our flood water and give it to some areas in drought. And a lot of logistics would go into that we just don't have set up. And then here it's talking about desalinization as an option. And I think that's it. Yes, that is it for this last section.